My name is Okechukwu Blessing Okere. People call me Okey, Okey for short. I am a Nigerian. I live in Nigeria. I have been a consultant for over 20 years, and I did my MBA with Business School Netherlands here in the Nigeria campus in Lagos. My set, of course, was Ikeja 8, because we have a campus in an area of Lagos called Ikeja in Lagos. So before my MBA, I worked as a consultant mostly, and I also did an MBA some time ago before coming to Business School Netherlands, and the MBA was in a government-owned university in Nigeria. I learned a few things, quite a number of things in that MBA, but I felt that MBA was too theoretical. We didn't have a lot of hands-on experiences working on companies or working on real issues with organizations. It seemed quite theoretical, and I wanted something that was more practical. I also wanted something that was more international in its outlook, hence the attraction to BSN. BSN, basically in their advertisement, in what they mentioned, there were two key advantages that I thought were very important to me. The first one was they have an approach that is really different from most MBAs. They mentioned that they don't actually take exams. Well, in a sense, because it was more practical. You were required to undertake what they called action learning projects. So it's a school that basically looked at action learning. The emphasis of the school is that it's not just what you learn in class that makes you quite different, but what you put to work from what you learn in class, which really was a huge attraction to me. So the exams were more practical rather than theoretical. Yes, you will be required to read up on the theories that underpin the work that you will do, but you were required to identify a problem in your organization and solve that problem using an action learning approach. And as you probably have heard about action learning from Business School Netherlands, if you've heard about it before, action learning involves asking questions, asking the right questions, and trying to find several solutions to a problem and looking for the best implementable solution to that problem. So that approach is very practical, very hands-on, and very resourceful and very successful as well. So I was able to, that basically was the first attraction for this MBA program for me. And the second attraction was the flexibility of the program, in the sense that you basically were in control of your calendar as a student, recognizing again that a lot of the people that were students or former students of BSN, and even the current students as well, are usually busy executives. So it's really asking too much of an executive for you to say that the executive would have to do a full-time program most of the time. So flexibility is something that is really important. Of course, there's a structured program, there's a calendar, but you have the ability to, based on your schedule, based on your context and your situation, you could amend your calendar. You could amend the times that you will attend the classes, and ensure that you can graduate perhaps not within the stipulated time, but not too long after the stipulated time. So the two things that were really attractors to me, first one, like I said, was the examination, the fact that we didn't have to take theoretical exams per se. We were required to conduct action learning projects, so interventions in our organizations. And then the second thing, of course, is the flexibility. So those are the two key attractors for me. I'm still talking about exams as well. You know, as somebody who's been involved in learning and development over the years, I have noticed that oftentimes when you have exam-based degrees or exam-based courses, the students tend to study only for the exam. They will memorize the key concepts and they will basically cram them into their heads and go into the exam hall and just spew everything out and get a good result. But nothing really stays with them beyond the classroom. So it's really important, in my view, that education involves some practical use of your knowledge, of the knowledge that you have acquired. And for me, that was, like I said, one of the biggest attractors for me to do my program with BSN. So many things I would say that I got from BSN. The first was the use of what we call alpha-beta questions, the right way to ask questions in order to, first of all, to understand a problem, a concept, a phenomenon, and to find solutions to that problem or situation. So asking the right questions for me is the first, perhaps the most important thing. So we have a saying, my ethnic group where I come from in Nigeria, I'm Igbo, here in Nigeria, we have a saying, "Onya juju anefuzo." So that's in Igbo, if you can get that. And I'll say it again in Igbo just in case. Onya juju anefuzo. So Onya juju is the person who asks questions. So it basically means he that asks questions, or one that asks questions, never gets lost. If you ask questions or if you ask for directions, you never get lost. And you know, interpreting that into the educational context, BSN taught me to do away with assumptions. So you get into a situation and you be like, "Oh, we've seen that before. This is the problem. This is how." No. It may not be like that. When you investigate properly, you might discover that the situation is a lot more complex than you think it is. So that's the first thing, how to ask the right questions, how to pull yourself out of the context, in a sense, you know, mentally to pull yourself out of the context and ask the right questions to help you see the bigger picture so that you can arrive at solutions. The second thing, which is that I took from BSN, which is related to the first thing, is that BSN taught me to be a better consultant. And a lot of my friends who worked in industry rather than consulting, like I did when we did the programs, the MBA, they have also confirmed to me that it's like they have now become the internal consultants in their organizations, in their various organizations. So they've become the go-to people. When a problem arises, management, and in many cases, many of these people have now risen to the highest levels of management in their organizations. They are able to solve this problem and indeed save their organizations a lot of money, millions of dollars, in the sense that the organizations will not need to engage big consulting firms to deal with these issues. So how to ask the right questions, how to solve problems, how to conduct research properly, which of course for me was a very valuable thing as a consultant. So research I'm talking about here is not just academic research. Of course, the research that we do in Business School Netherlands meets academic standards, but research that is also relevant in the business field. So I was able to get that skill, and that actually propelled me or encouraged me to do a doctorate degree as well with Business School Netherlands, having that research background. So it was a lot easier for me to take on a doctorate degree, and not just that, to do research constantly for my clients from them. So those are some of the key takeaways I got from Business School Netherlands. And if I remember one more, connections. I got connected to a lot of people, a lot of influential people in industry. Some of them have become my clients. Some of them have introduced me to new clients. So that's another benefit that I would say BSN gave to me. I would really say that I plan to be a doctor because when I was done with the MBA, or just about the time, just before wrapping up the MBA, I probably said to myself, this is it. I'm not going to school again. Because an MBA program, regardless of where you take it, is usually very tasking. It is said that the MBA is the most rigorous master's degree. And I know that for a fact, especially an action learning MBA, like the one you have in Business School Netherlands, which is not just exam-based, but actually practical in the sense that you will be required to undertake projects. It's really tasking. It takes a lot from you. It takes a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice. And I thought to myself, towards around the time I started doing the program, this is it. I'm done with this and I'm not doing anything else. But after I started the program and I began to master how to engage in research and to do research and to solve problems, and I started seeing the benefits. I started thinking to myself, perhaps it might not be a bad idea to continue. I was able to graduate with cum laude, magna cum laude, and some of my lecturers, some of the lecturers in BSM, and my coach, my set coach, my advisor, said to me, "Hey, you've come out with a very good degree, a cum laude, actually the first in Nigeria at the time, from Business School Netherlands, the Nigeria campus. That perhaps you want to consider doing a doctorate degree." And I was like, okay, maybe let's think about it and let's see. And one of my coaches mentioned to me that, did you know that the MBA is actually more difficult than the doctorate degree? And I was like, really? I was like, okay, let's try it out. Well, that's not actually very true. I wish it was. The MBA is more tasking indeed, but the doctorate degree requires more patience and more endurance. The MBA is like a sprint in a sense, but the doctorate degree is like a 3-day marathon, if you can imagine that. So I enrolled after looking at all of these, considering the fact that the MBA was tough, and if I could do this, perhaps I could encourage myself to do a DBA, a Doctor of Business Administration. That's what the DBA stands for. So a DBA is quite different, not quite different, but a little bit different from a PhD. And nowadays, just like you have the MBA, doctorate degrees are now becoming specialized. So in the past, before we had MBAs, you had only MSCs. Right? So if you were doing an MA, so if you were doing a master's degree in management, you were either doing an MA or that's Master of Arts, or you were doing an MSc, Master of Science. And then eventually an MBA became something that people started looking towards. So a PhD and a DBA, and then there are other degrees, like in law, you have the LLD, or is it DLL? I can't remember now. And in education nowadays, you have the EDD, which is becoming something else quite famous. So EDD, LLD, and all of that. And then the DBA is a doctorate degree that focuses on management, on business administration, and it's meant to be practical, again, hands-on, in the sense that your thesis, your research will be about practical, real-life issues that focus on improving the way people do business, the way people work, practical real life issues related to business administration. So that's the key difference. It's as rigorous as the PhD in the sense that you will be required to do research, detailed research to contribute to knowledge. So it's not in any way easier than the PhD. I guess the only key requirement that I have noticed so far that might be a bit of a difference is the emphasis on seminars, giving seminars and writing articles and getting articles published. With the DBA, you are more focused on your research. But with the PhD, you're focused on many other things that are, in my view, and not just in my view, most people will agree, are quite theoretical in a sense. But this doesn't mean that they are not, that whatever they come out with in the PhD program is still not useful to the real world. But the DBA is built around business. It's built around business, and you're supposed to be now ideally someone who can lead a business effectively, or can help to coach and bring insights into other businesses and help them to function optimally. So that's the key difference between both degrees, and that's how I got into it. I started my DBA immediately after my graduation from my MBA. I enrolled with BSM. It was really easy to enroll on account of the fact that I had finished my MBA with BSM, so there wasn't really any need for transcripts or whatever, because they had all the details. And I was required to travel to the Netherlands and to Czech Republic for a few times for our diets, for our classes, and then come back to Nigeria, do my research, and present my research at each of those diets that we had. So it was grueling, I have to say, really, really tasking, but I managed to finish it. I also have to say, I was supposed to finish it in between 3 and 4 years, but I had to take 5 years to finish it because of my workload. But I think if I was to do it again, I would finish it in 3 years. I think I'll be able to do it in 3 years, because I know the challenges I had, and I couldn't really manage my time effectively. So that's basically it. Wow. So you want to do an MBA? You need to ask yourself, why do you want to do an MBA? It's really important. MBA programs and doctorate programs, unfortunately, have a high rate of dropouts. A lot of people start and they can't finish. I think that the main reason why people are unable to finish their MBA is that they, from the get-go, from the start, they didn't quite define for themselves the real reason why they want to do it. So now I coach MBA students, and the first thing I ask them when they come into class is, I coach and I teach MBA students. So the first thing I ask them when they come to class is, what are you willing to give up for the MBA? And that is usually not a very good way to start a class. What are you willing to give up for the MBA? Because I would always have to say, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you, and I'm not just talking about money. It's going to cost you your time. So you need to define, why do you want to do the MBA? Why is it so important to you? Write it down so that it can be your motivation to finish, and begin to identify what you're willing to give up for your MBA, specifically in terms of your schedule and your time. So for MBA students, once you have identified why you want to do it, look at your schedule and begin to build or revamp your schedule, restructure your schedule around the program. I know for a fact that if you dedicate 2 hours a day to your studies, your MBA studies, you will come out with a very, very good degree, a distinction or a cum laude. That I can tell but the issue is, if you're already an executive and you're already working, finding 2 hours every day could be really challenging. But you can do it. How can you do it? Perhaps you want to read in transit, if you're in the bus or in the train, or if you are in the Uber or you have a driver, you want to try and see if you can maximize that free time. You probably want to have a discussion with your spouse or your partner before you start the MBA program, because it's going to cost you some time. Unfortunately, MBAs are referred to as Marriage Breakers Association, MBA, Marriage Breakers Association, and it's not a good thing because they say that the divorce rate with MBAs are higher than divorce rates with MSCs. So Marriage Breakers Association, but it doesn't have to be a marriage breaking experience. You can, if you are able to negotiate with your spouse or your partner, it's really important if you have one. If you don't have one yet, or you don't have one at all, then it might be a bit easier. If you have family, you have friends that you normally spend time with, you will need to negotiate some of those activities. I love watching football, but football or my interest in the sport had to play second fiddle. I just couldn't keep up with the games with my MBA program. So something has to give. And again, usually when you start doing an MBA program and you get more knowledgeable, it starts showing in your work. Next thing you know, you get promoted, and then you have more responsibility, and you're not done yet with your MBA program. And sometimes some people give up at that stage. And I want to say to you, if you're doing this program now, that's not the time to give up. Yeah, keep focused. Remember why you started it. Again, look at your time, restructure your time. If you're someone who likes to study in the morning, then perhaps you want to get to the office a bit earlier and do your work, study before your day starts, or you want to stay an hour or two after a closing time, use your office as a quiet place to study, maximize your time on weekends. If you have a family, before everybody gets up on a Saturday, do your assignments, do your reading, and then 9 o'clock you're ready, and then you can hang out with the kids and the family. So there are very practical ways to make this happen, but all of these will start when you prioritize the program. Remembering again that at the master's level, you have less supervision than at the bachelor's level. So no one is going to run around and tell you, hey, come to class, or turn in your assignments or whatever. It's left for you to manage yourself so that you can prove that you're indeed a master of administration, a master of business administration.